Welcome to the 44th season of the International Luge World Cup. The Eberspecher Luge World Cup comes to you at its traditional opening weekend spot in Innsbruck, Austria. Hello, everyone. I'm Tim Singer. This race is in Eagles, Austria, just outside of Innsbruck. It's a beautiful morning. In Fahrenheit terms, this is about 27 degrees, sunny, very little wind, perfect ice conditions. Very much unlike last year's opening World Cup race, which was held in warm weather and made for very unpredictable racing. Here's a closer look at this track here in Eagles. From the men's start, 1,232 meters. It seems short, not as short though. Park City, Utah, quite a bit shorter. La Plagne, France, a shorter track. Obviously the new other Austrian track in Bludenz, also quite a bit shorter. Here's a look at the view, courtesy of Austria's Reinhard Eger. It's a steep drop off of the relatively new start house. Big right-hand turn followed by another left-hand turn. And then some small little zigzags here, as on your left in a moment is where the doubles and women's start comes in. That's a much more challenging start, by the way. You'll see later today this double start ramp into that big left-hand turn. Now the 270-degree Kreisel curve. Famous curve here in Innsbruck. Great place to watch the race, by the way. And then negotiating 7 and 8, and maybe the crux of this course, the exit of curve 9. That's a tough one. Even Eger hits the wall there. Curve 10, down at the bottom, leads the lugers into the lower S turns, or the lower labyrinth. And then it's a big uphill finish. The track record was set about 4 years ago, rather 9 years ago. Johannes Ludwig with a 49.823, actually Wolfie Kindle at the World Championships. And there's a look at the start list. And we welcome you to a different kind of season here on the FIL Luge World Cup Tour. New sponsor, lots of new restrictions due to the pandemic. We're going to talk all about that during this opening weekend of competition. The Luge World has done a great job just to make this competition happen, and we're underway with a brand new season from Romania. This is Teodor Tăria. Teodor, 22 years old, still a student out of Briața, Romania. He's got some good older mentors on his team to look up to. In a little bit, we'll be seeing Valentin Cretu, the senior member of the Romanian luge team for the men. Tomorrow, Raluca Stramațaru. You saw some skidding there on the entrance to the Kreisel. And very exciting to just see what kind of time, what kind of ice conditions. Really rugged off of curve 9. I will tell you I am solo all weekend. I'll be commentating on my own, so we'll be a little light on the analyzing the performance and a little heavier on talking about the event. He comes through with a time of 51.639, the rabbit of this competition, as my longtime colleague John Morgan likes to say, Teodor Tăria from Romania. Okay, taking care of some business right away. This is the first of what is, at least for now, 8 scheduled World Cup races. Originally, there were 9 on the schedule, but just this past week, the test event, the Olympic test event in Beijing, was canceled. Whether they actually reschedule that somewhere else remains to be seen. Earlier this year, the other Asian event in Pyeongchang, along with the North American competitions, including the World Championships, those were all postponed or canceled and moved to Europe sites. On course now, Anton Dukash. Dukash has been around for a while in the sport, 25-year-old sport instructor out of Kiev. 300s right now behind Terea. His start time was quite a bit slower, about 100th slower. But as you see, he's opened up the time down here in the lower part of the track. Avoids the skid into Kreisel and the skid out of curve 9 that Terea had. So Anton Dukash looking pretty good down here in the lower S's. On a beautiful day in Eagles, he crosses 50.795. As a point of comparison, that is about 9/10 of a second off of the track record. That seems like a lot, and it is a lot. Yet, keep in mind, in World Cup Luge, in run number 1, the best go last. So it is very possible that the track record could fall. Two down, 32 in the field. Everyone qualifies for a second run. That's how it works on the World Cup. Only in the World Championships at the Olympics do they shoot down the schedule, pare it down, and eliminate some athletes for the final run. Now from Great Britain, the lone British athlete qualifying for this weekend's competition, Rupert Stoudinger. Rupert, Professor Luge. If you haven't been following, please take a moment to go on YouTube, see the Luge channel, the FIL channel, and Rupert's been doing some great videos as Professor Luge. They're funny, they're informative, and they let everyone know a little bit more about some of the aspects of this sport you just may not know about. Steering, equipment, preparation. So Stoudinger, it's great that he qualified. His goal, when I was chatting with him earlier this week, his big goal, he said, is to qualify for the Olympics. But consistency and the ability to qualify for as many World Cups as possible is this season's goal. Not bad out of curve 9, certainly not carrying the same speed as Dukash. 122.4 kilometers an hour was his fastest speed down at the low point. So for Rupert Stoudinger, that translates to 76.1 miles per hour and a finish time that's 0.4 of a second behind the leader, Anton Dukash. Great to see Rupert out there. We're not far from his home, even though he represents Great Britain. Rupert Stoudinger, of course, competes out of Berchtesgaden. Alex Gufla making his World Cup debut 1 year after Lucas Gufla, also a young Italian, made his first World Cup appearance here in Innsbruck last year. Alex Gufla, the youngest competitor in today's race, just 18 years old. Now, I have not had a chance to message back and forth with Armin Zugler or Kurt Brugger or any of the coaching staff of the Italian team, but if it is like last year, they will only have the young athletes compete in a few of the races, the ones close to home. This, of course, is the home track right now for the Italian program, not far from Mirensen and the Südtirolian region. However, they are building the new track in Cortina d'Ampezzo for the 2026 Olympics. And keep in mind that they spent some time in the preseason actually training a little bit on the old Cesana track. Not too old, but no longer in service. 51.178 for Alex Gufla, his first ever World Cup run, a successful one as he makes it down safely. Looking ahead, of course, the seeded athletes will be going last. 14 of this 32-man field did not have to qualify yesterday in Nations Cup. They were all advanced in the seeded group. Look out for Dominic Fischnaller. He'll be the last to go. He always does well here. How will Felix Lach do this year? We know the Austrians, who have been among the best in the world the last 2 or 3 years, they will do well. So Mueller and Gleirscher, Kindle, Ager, they will all be factors. But here is another young athlete making his first appearance on the World Cup. This is Marian Skupek from Slovakia. He actually raced once each of the last 2 years. Has not yet cracked the top 50 in the World Cup overall standings, but he is last year finished in the top 5 in the Junior World Cup. The first of the Slovakians is veteran teammate Jakub Simonek coming up next. Dukash put down a good early time, apparently, with that 50.795, as Skupek at 76.7 miles an hour. He crosses in second place. And right now, as I look at the speeds are corresponding perfectly with the finish placings. That's not always the case in Luge, but right now, Skupek with the second fastest speed and the second place time right now of the first 5. So it's Dukash, Skupek, and Alex Gufla leading the way very early in this competition. Well, one Slovakian safely down and another one getting ready to go up at the top. It's 24-year-old Jakub Simonek. I had a chance to chat with Jakub a few days ago. His goal, he just wants to qualify for all of the World Cups this year. And of course, as I mentioned, that's easier said than done, because these athletes have what arguably is the toughest race every week, the Nations Cup qualifying race, which Simonek raced in yesterday and made it into this World Cup field. Jakub also said top 20s would be nice.
Simonek jetzt mit der schnellsten Startzeit bisher mit 5:42. 5:42 starting time, Jakub Simonek.
Last year, Jakub finished the World Cup in 32nd place in the standings in singles. Keeping it close to Dukash here, just 100th back through the Kreisel. Oh, you see the correction there as his leg comes up. Let's see how he gets out of 9. Not bad. But how much did he slow himself down with the skid above curve 9, right around curve 8? Speed at 76 miles an hour even. Could be a third place time here based on the speed. And it is 51.137 for Jakub Simonek. Last year, finished his college studies, but plans to go to grad school as well. Yeah, riding on the edge there. Friction sometimes costs more time than hitting walls, and the masks come right on. That is one of the protocols for all of these athletes. The masks must be on, face masks, until right before they start, and then right after they walk up the outrun. Now Valentin Cretu, one of the senior members of this men's World Cup tour, 31 years old, from Senaya. His goals this season, Valley tells us, is to improve his driving skills, find a way to be faster on the track, and work on his aerodynamic position. That's just some of what he told me. But let's see how Valentin Cretu does on his way down the track. Cretu finished in 27th place last year in the World Cup. His best result was one top 20. He had a 20th in Sigulda, Latvia. Hey, by the way, if you are up early and tuning in, you can find us on Twitter at Luge Announcer. And you can also email us at luge.announcer@gmail.com. Valentin Cretu had the lead going until he went over out of curve 10. I believe that was out of curve 10 or 11. He hangs onto the sled. He does cross the finish line. Had that crash happened a little earlier, he may not have made it up that steep outrun. unfortunate, as Cretu looked to be the first athlete in the last 6 or 7 to challenge Anton Dukash. He was operating under a first place time at the moment. Let's see what happens. That's out of 11. Correct me if I'm wrong if you want to tweet in. Of course, Cretu, so savvy, such a veteran, so good at the sport, so experienced. He knew exactly what to do. He held onto that sled. He laid low on the ice, and he gets a finish time. It's always a tough way to start your season when you've been thinking all year about returning to the World Cup and improving. Now we have the first of the Germans. This is Moritz Bowman, just 20 years old, police officer out of Sonnenberg, which is the Thuringian region, which has really produced so many great lugers and bobsledders and skeleton athletes. It's out of the Oberhof track. This is Moritz's second season now on the World Cup. Last year he competed in most of the races, but not all of the races. Was 24th in the World Cup. His best result was a 14th place. He actually had a pair of 14th places in Whistler, with Whistler and the Whistler Sprint. Bowman operating with a lead, and a pretty safe lead at this point, already 1300ths up as he heads into the Kreisel. Now opening it up to 1600ths a little later on. We'll see Felix Locke and Johannes Ludwig, the Olympic medalist, part of the German team. Sebastian Blei has qualified for this weekend's race. Also Andy Langenhahn, not Andy Langenhahn, Max Langenhahn. But it's Bowman. You can't even recognize Norbert Locke there with the full face mask and the hoodie. But he's there applauding his youngest of the German sliders. Bowman into the lead, 50.578. Great form on the sled. The Germans, of course, have been training for much of the last few months, including their national championships were held in Koenigsee just last weekend. Now it's Andrei Manzi, the second of the Ukrainians. Manzi, 32 years old. He's a teacher out of Kremenets, Ukraine. Two-time Olympian. His best result in Sochi. He had a 31st place at Games. And 31st was also where he ended up last year on the World Cup. No top 20s last year. So that is an obvious goal for Manzi. Well, hello to Jim, who's watching this morning in New Hampshire, tweeting in, up at 3 in the morning. You gotta love your luge, Jim, to be up and enjoying the action. Great sound of that sled. Production crew on hand here, working under tough conditions. Of course, everyone separated here around the track. No spectators. Manzi finishes at 50.832. That is a quarter of a second off of the pace that was just set by Moritz Bowman. The third place right now for Manzi.
Start Nummer 10 aus Schweden. Das ist der nächste oben am Start.
Yeah, great look at that curve of 9, the exit of 9, which is always one of the best locations for the super slow-mo cameras. Underneath is where the outrun is. It's a little tunnel, this new facility that they built. It's now about 15, 18 years ago. It used to be just a little hut down there at the bottom. Well, it was great to see Svante Kohala qualify for the World Cup race. He did not qualify that often. Usually he and his sister show up at the race in Lillehammer and one or two others, but maybe we will see Svante here throughout the season. former 12th place finisher on the Lillehammer track at the Youth Olympic Games in 2016. $1,500 behind the German. We still have about 8 more from the qualifying group before we get to the seeded athletes. And the question is, will the track hold up? Looks like it's in great shape right now. 900's back, so a good bottom part of the track for Svante Kola. And maybe we will see much more improved results this year from the Swedish program. Svante's sister Tova competes in the Women's World Cup. Yeah, nice lines, and peeking his head up just a little bit. It's just impressive to me how the athletes keep their heads so low from top to bottom on this course. If you don't believe me, get ready to watch Semen Pavlichenko a little later on. Now the third of the young Italians, Leon Felderer, 20-year-old. He's from Las Fons in Südtirol. And later on, we've got the Fischnaller cousins. Those are the 2 older Italians that could challenge for the medals. But the 3 youngsters, the newcomers to the program, Felderer also saw limited action last season, including here in Eagles. So again, Felderer qualified yesterday in the Nations Cup, where some 30 athletes tried for 18 positions. The top 18 made it into the main draw. That's the way it works every year, every week, I should say, on the World Cup. Many are called, few are chosen. And if you do have results over the last 3 weeks, it's the best results from the past 3 races that gets one into the seeded group, and they don't have to qualify. Everyone else has that stressful race on Friday. So Felderer crosses with a time 43/100ths behind the leader Bowman. He's currently in 5th place. So here in the early going, it's Germany, Sweden, 2 Ukrainians in 3rd and 4th, and then the Italian Felderer in 5th place right now, with 18 still to come. Next up, we've got Mateusz Sokovic, the one and only Polish athlete in today's race. Sokovic, 24 years old. He's had some good results, a couple of top 15s over his first few seasons. I think last year was a bit of a down year for him. He had a 14th place in the second to last race in Winterberg. That was his best result of the season. But as we'll be referring to a lot this year, the Winterberg race was sort of a strange race last season, as several of the countries chose not to compete in it. And there were a lot of firsts, a lot of best results ever, including Sokovic's doubles teammates who had their first ever podium in Winterberg. Let's see how he does out of Kreisel. 1400s in back of the German. Pretty clean lines from what I can see. (123.4K), that's 76.6 miles per hour. That's the 4th fastest, and it's the 4th fastest time down at the bottom, 50.81 for the lone Polish athlete in today's race, Mateusz Sokovic. His mentor and older teammate Maciej Karabski retired after the 2019 season. And the Polish Bear is now coaching with the FIL program, the developing athletes. Yeah, Ken tweets in saying that it's funny that Felderer is from Latvian and doing the artificial track, because that's one of the homes, of course, for Naturban, the natural track, part of the FIL World Cup. Now, here is the first of the Latvians, Riks Rozītis, 26 years old, from Sigulda. His hobbies include cycling and what he calls active rest. I'm not sure what active rest actually means, or whether that translated improperly. Maybe active rest is playing some wild video games. Bullman of Germany continuing the lead here in the Kreisel, Riks Rozītis. Nicely done as he approaches curve 9 now. Ooh, good speed, keeps it together and moves into the green. 50.578. Latvia has several athletes in today's race. Darzniek's coming up in a bit. Strong doubles program out of Latvia, and the women, they're good across the board. 50.462, the lead by a tenth of a second now for Riks Rozītis. Nicely done. He's a student at the Latvian Academy of Sports Education when not competing, and a former silver medalist at the Youth Olympic Games. Later on, we'll also see Christas Apariods, and we'll see what kind of performance he has. I've been saying for several years that Apariods is going to be one of the next great athletes in this sport. Here's Lucas Gufla. His brother Alex won a moment ago and is currently back in the standings a bit in 10th place. Lucas last year in the World Cup raced at the beginning of the year and the end of the year, and by virtue of that ended up 28th in the World Cup standings, including a 15th place finish at that scaled down race in Winterberg. He's 21 years old. Luge moms up and watching, brand new season. Of course, the American team, along with the Canadians and the Chinese, are not competing in Europe, at least in the first half of the season. We hope to see them back in January. But the Luge moms up and watching, missing the USA sliders, and obviously managing some sneaky way to get the commentary in the USA. Glad to hear it. Send your comments. And hey, if any of the American or Canadian athletes are watching live and you see all of the mistakes I'm making on the curves, or where someone did something wrong, I value your expertise. So by all means, send us some tweets. Look at that, tied to the 1,000th of a second. Gufler and Rozītis tied right now at the lead, 50.462. Time to start timing Luge to the 10,000th of a second if you're going to have ties at the lead to the 1,000th of a second. That's incredible. After 1,200 meters of sliding. So we have a tie for the lead. It's Latvia and Italy, with Germany in third, Sweden in fourth, and the Ukraine in fifth place. And now up, the first of the Russians. There's a look at Armin Zugler, Marcus Prock, two of the greats. Between them, they have 20 World Cup overall titles. How about that? Two men, 20 World Cups. That's about half of the World Cup titles that have been won in the history of this sport. Now the Russians, Stepan Fedorov. Great to see Fedorov back. He did not compete full-time last year. This is a man with a World Cup victory 4 years ago in the snow in Winterberg. He's had several other good podium results, but this Russian team has become so strong and so deep with Repila and Pavlichenko, World Cup champions both, Gorbatsevich, Maxim Aravin. It's been tough to break into it, but look at this, Fedorov having a good run, the two-time Olympian. His best result was a 13th in Pyeongchang. Only raced a couple of times last year. It was tough to see him miss out on the World Championships on his home track. Bad year to not be a full-time luger. He's in the red here, his speed at 77.2 miles per hour. Uphill to the finish here in Eagles. Stepan Fedorov in fourth place, 50.609. And Ruslan down there at the finish can only shake his head. It's Latvia and Italy tied for the lead. This was the first of the Russians as we make our way down to the final qualifiers from Friday's Nations Cup race. The next three to go were the podium finishers yesterday in the Nations Cup. Abers Pesha, its first year as the title sponsor for the World Cup Tour. Wiesmann and BMW, as you can see from the two signs there, still very much involved with their sponsorship of the sport. And if not the best yet in the sport, certainly one of the funniest athletes on the circuit. Here's Arturs Darznieks. It's always great to have Arturs commentating alongside. No filter, love it. 27 years old, from Sigulda. His favorite tracks in the world are the home track in Sigulda, along with Lake Placid and Koenigsegg. Those two favorites for just about all of the athletes. Arturs having a first place time here in the early going as he passes the ladies' double start and makes his way through the Kreisel. Kreisel, the German word for carousel. Clean out of 9. This should be good. What kind of speed? 77.8. That's the best speed so far. Can he hang on down here in the lower labyrinth? Every track must have a labyrinth, and it's a tricky one down below here in Eagles, 50.301. And Martin Zlubenis seems to be happy with that down below. The Olympic medalist coaching the Latvians, also a great sled technician. Been a big help to this program. Really put Latvia Luge on the map over the 21st century. Arturs Darznieks takes the lead, but now get ready for the Austrians. Not only are they on their home track, but the Austrians have been so deep, and by deep I mean so many different men's athletes have the possibility to win a World Cup race, a World Cup medal, a World Championship. And this man has done all of those. Wolfgang Kindl took a world title, the Weltmeister, from this track in 2017. He finished third last year at the World Championship in Sochi. He's a former World Cup overall winner. Wolfie starting out his season having to qualify, but he qualified in second place just behind his teammate Nico Gleirscher yesterday. Kindl on course. Three-time Olympian, top 10 in all of his Olympic appearances. In fact, 9th place each time. Kindl has that George Hackl frame, short and stocky, the opposite of an Armin Zugler frame. But there is no one prototype in this sport. That's what's great about it. Wolfie still 300ths back here as he gets out of curve 9. Did he take a wrong line, or was it a gutsy line? A gamble. We'll find out if this turns to green. 78.1, great speed. That's the fastest speed. So he has the possibility here and does it 50.261. Kindl is in the lead by 0.04 of a second, finding that speed down at the bottom, which, as you know, is what Wolfgang Kindl does best, perhaps better than anyone. The lower part of the track is where he turns it on. I am making an early prediction that Kindl will be the one to beat on Sunday afternoon in the sprint competition. It's tailor-made for the Wolfgang Kindls of the world and the Martina Kochers and the Emily Sweeneys, the people that really open it up down at the bottom. Kindl in the lead, and now Nico Gleirscher. Nico has had to operate in the shadow of his older brother David the last several years. David winning the Olympic medal and getting the full-time World Cup status. Nico really was a great teammate all of last year. Didn't race in a lot of the World Cup events. Did manage to finish 22nd in the World Cup standings and had a 4th place finish here. But after that, nothing better than 14th. But he showed up at every race. He helped his teammates even when he wasn't entered into the race. Helped with the equipment. As I said, the model teammate. Now maybe he can make a statement on his own this season. Nico, 23 years old. He has the lead. He has a big lead out of curve 9. Perfect line. This is a sensational run. Speed of 78.5 miles an hour, fastest speed, and he'll have an easy lead down here at the bottom. 1600s up on Kindl. The top 3 right now through the qualifying group, exactly the same as the top 3 yesterday in the Nations Cup qualifying. Gleirscher, Kindl, and Darznieks. It's Austria, Austria, Latvia, Latvia. The top 4 right now as we move to the seeded athletes. Great showing there by Nico Gleirscher. And Renny Friedel enjoys what he sees. I think he's hoping maybe for a podium sweep for Austria. And that's not out of the realm of possibility. At Luge Announcer on Twitter, your questions, your comments, your thoughts, your criticisms. I love the criticisms. Nico makes his way down, and he'll get a chance to watch 3 of his Austrian teammates still getting ready to go. But now we move to the seated group, and here is Alexander Gorbatsevich, 26 years old, from St. Petersburg. Last year, Gorbatsevich was 18th in the World Cup, including 1 top 5 showing, an impressive 5th place in Lillehammer. He blew it up here in Eagles last year and was 32nd, I believe, and last. In fact, he crashed, if I recall, last year in this opening World Cup race. $1,300s and back. These Austrians could hang on to the lead for a little bit, but on deck is David Gleirscher. So it could be Austria, Austria, Austria after he goes. Gorbatsevich, 77.8 miles an hour, into the finish in 4th place. That's not surprising. Keep in mind, the qualifiers from the Nations Cup in Friday, those who were in the podiums, it's not unusual for them to all end up in the top 6 or 7 in a given race. They're only qualifying because they perhaps didn't do as well in some other tracks. But it's usually a good indication that they're comfortable on this track. So we could see certainly Wolfie Kindl and Nico Gleirscher up near the top of the leaderboard for a while. And speaking of Gleischers, now the Olympic gold medalist, David Gleirscher, getting set to go. After that Olympic medal, which of course shocked the luge world, he did break out the following season with his first World Cup podiums, and then last year had an incredible consistent string of 6 consecutive races in the top 5, including his first ever World Cup victory. That was in Altenburg. So David Gleirscher, certainly one of the best in the world at this point, 26 years old. His brother has the lead down at the bottom. David was telling me a few days ago his goals for this season is to show more consistency. Last year he showed that he could be fast, and for sure he's setting his sights as well on the World Championships in Koenigsegg. Last year, David had a heartbreaking world championship as he had the lead after the first run, and then the last sled down in run number 2, he crashed. In fact, it was the only crash of the race. 5 thousandths behind his brother right now, as now he overtakes Nico. 78.8 miles per hour, fastest speed, and here at the top, the fastest time, 50.062. That's about 1,600 still off of the track record, but it's a Gleirscher Kindle 1-2-3 Austria leaderboard at the moment with 12 sleds remaining here. That's not a surprise. They open this track up early. A lot of the nations come to Innsbruck to train preseason, the British and the Italians, but the Austrians, of course, own the track as often as they want in preparation for the World Cup opener. Nice showing by David Gleirscher, the Olympic gold medalist, now into the lead.
Aber zuvor jetzt Josef Nienisch in der Start Nummer 21. Startfrei, der Track is clear.
Red light, green light when they hit that control. If you get the red light, your sled needs to be checked. The athlete needs to be weighed. The green light, you get a free pass. Now Josef Nienens. He will turn 40 next summer. The senior member of competition on this Luge World Cup. He has been on the World Cup since 2004. Also a 3-time Olympian. His best Olympic result was in Sochi, 20th place. Nienens has been steady. Some of his best results have been in the last several years, including his first ever podium a couple of years ago in Sigulda. Another athlete that's very good in the sprint format. Now, to qualify for the sprint tomorrow, these athletes must be in the top 15 in the World Cup race. So it's not a sure thing by any stretch. And Nienens is not looking that fast compared to most of the early sliders here. Skid down there in the lower labyrinth. He is still maintaining contact with the sled, but 20th place in an awful way to start the season for Josef Nienens of Slovakia. Unfortunate. The thing about having that crash in the World Cup race is obviously you're going to be way back in the standings for that race. You will not qualify for the sprint. And generally, it's the best result for each nation that gets to represent their country in the relay competition. And we're in a unique weekend here in Eagles, where tomorrow there will be both a sprint and a relay event. Okay. In my opinion, the best luger in the world right now is Roman Alexandrovich Rapilov. Rapilov, a 2-time junior world champion who lived up to the billing when he hit the senior ranks. Now he has 2 World Cup overall titles. He has a world championship. Rapilov was 8th at the Olympic Games, and that is arguably his most disappointing showing in his still young career, just 24 years old, from Dimitrov. His luge idol is Armin Zugler, and he's got a lot of work to do to catch up to Zugler. And Zugler's 57 World Cup victories, but Rapilov already has 9 World Cup wins in his still young career. He's in the red behind Gleirscher. And the speed a little slower, almost a kilometer an hour slower than the Austrian, as he's in 3rd place, 50.224. He breaks apart the Austrian monopoly on the podium at the moment, as Austria still remains 1-2-4, Kindle in 4th, Rapilov in 3rd, and the 2 Gleirscher brothers leading the way.
Nächste Nummer am Start, Südtirol, Italien mit Kevin Fischner, Startnummer 23.
Okay, next up, we have the 4th of the 5 Südtirolians from northern Italy. Kevin Fischnaller, a one-time winner in the World Cup, back several seasons ago in Winterberg. Last-minute visualization of the course. Fischnaller's been battling some injuries over the last couple of years, but last season ended up very respectable 14th place in the World Cup standings. His best result of the season was in the second to last race, also in Winterberg. On course, and Ken Childs, slidingonice.com, comes in with a quick comment that saying he's thrilled that there's a new trophy for the World Cup slider who does best in just the full field World Cups. So what Ken is talking about is there's a new trophy that has been introduced this year. The Joska Crystal still goes to the World Cup overall champion. That's all of the full-length races and the sprints. But then a separate crystal will be awarded to the winner of the full field World Cup races, which this is. There's been a little bit of a outcry for the athletes to say, you know, we don't get a chance to race in all of the sprints, so how are we going to be compared to the others? It's an interesting point as Fischnaller is in third place. There's Armin Zogler down at the finish area. With the new COVID protocols, only 2 members of the team are allowed down at the finish, 1 coach and 1 other assistant of sorts. The athlete is really on their own to march from one spot to the control or back to the truck to get to the top. They're really doing a great job of making sure the protocols are in place. Everyone is staying separate. Masks come on pretty quickly. Kevin's will come on here in a second. And everyone just pleased at how hard the organization has been working to make sure that this event can happen. FIL Executive Director Christoph Schweiger has been in charge of the COVID protocols. He is now titled the FIL Hygiene Officer. Now Reini Eger, the 4th of the Austrians to make it down the track. Jonas Mueller still to come. Eger with that great motto in the sport, with fun comes success. And come on, if you're not having fun, you just aren't going to be successful. Who wants an unhappy champion? Way back in 2009, Eger finished in 7th place in a men's singles event in his first season in Calgary. And then he had to really plod through some learning and growing years before probably having his best few seasons the last couple of years. Through the Kreisel, let's see how he matches up against Gleirscher. He's 1,500ths back at this point. Eger with 2 World Cup victories in his career, 1 in each of the last 2 seasons. His first was on a very snowy day in Koenigsee 2 seasons ago. 77.7 miles an hour. Let's see how this translates. Will be top 5? No, losing a lot of time down at the bottom. I did not pick up many of those mistakes. Perhaps Rennie Friedel did with the thumbs down. Well, my head was buried in some of those statistics, so I may have missed something glaring along the way. 10th place right now for Reinhard Eger, the poorest showing of the Austrians so far. Now Felix Loch of Germany. 3 more Germans still to come, actually 4 more. And that's quite a bunching with only 8 sleds remaining, half of them from Germany. 4-time Olympic gold medalist Felix Loch in men's singles and team relay in both 2010 and 2014. Second winningest all-time luger on the World Cup, 39. That's ahead of Prockenhakel, but still well behind Armin Zogler. "31 years old now. His home in Bavaria, right near the Koenigsee track. Let's see what kind of season Felix Loch could have. Last year was by far his poorest season. since he was very, very young, a teenager. No victories last year. Only a couple of podiums. Actually, maybe no podiums. No, he had 2 podiums. Well, he's still in the green here, and a really nice exit out of curve 9. The next split will be the finish split, but his speed is decent, 78.4. He falls into the red behind Gleirscher. How much will he lose? He doesn't. He finds it down at the bottom by 6 thousandths of a second. It's Germany out in front of Austria and Austria. And the question is, and you can answer it if you're on Twitter or email us, is Felix back? Felix is, I've found to be one of the harder to access for the media, so it's been tough to get an answer from him directly on maybe why he's fallen off a little bit over the last few years. And one speculation, of course, is when he is operating so closely with his coach, George Hackel, all non-Olympic seasons are spent experimenting and testing equipment and mailing it in and not worrying too much about World Cup results. But now in this year before the Olympics, it'll be interesting to see if Felix gets consistently back onto the podium. Okay, moving along. Sebastian Lai. Overall World Cup 17th last year for Sebastian, including a podium in Winterberg, his second career podium. 25 years old. His birthday was 2 weeks ago. He is from Suhl, the city not far from the Oberhof track, city that has produced some greats in the sliding sports, including Wolfgang Happe and Andre Lange, Andy Langenhahn and Luge. Lai well behind his teammate, Felix Locke, at this point. He has been sledding since he was 7 and went through all of the different levels of the German developmental program. He's a little bit on edge down here in the lower section in Innsbruck. 50.418. The mistakes definitely played out in his 9th place showing there. But one thing I don't know, and it'll be interesting to find out, is how the track's doing. It's a cold day. The track should be okay. Last year, you may recall, in both the men's and women's World Cup competitions, the winners, or at least the podium finishers, came back from 12th, 13th, 14th place to end up on the podium in the second run because it was so warm, and that was despite the fact they brought in help from Germany and did a great job just keeping the track together and competition worthy, but barely. Now the final Latvian in the race, 3 qualified. Rositas has already gone. Darznieks is already gone. Both of them remain in the top 10 for the moment. And here's Kristers Apariods, former youth Olympic gold medalist. 22 years old from Sigulda. His sister Candia will be competing tomorrow as well. They have really emerged as the leaders of this Latvian program in singles. Of course, you still have the Sheets brothers and a new young doubles team we'll see a little later on today from Latvia. Apriold's a big, strong athlete who's been competing since 2011. Comes from Sigulda, where his family owns a restaurant. 1100ths back here out of curve 9. Will it be the fast line? We'll see in the speed. Speed's not that strong, 77.7. Should be a 4th or 5th place here if he can find some speed here in the uphill to the finish. 5th place, 50.213, ahead of Rapilov of Russia. It's Locke, Gleirscher, Kevin Fischnaller, and Kristers Apariods, the top 5 with 5 remaining. Nice run by the Latvian.
Next on start
Last year in the 4 races, the men's, women's, doubles, and relay, there were 4 different countries winning races: Russia, Germany, Italy, and Austria. Johannes Ludwig up now, the Olympic bronze medalist. Longtime husband and father of 2 from Oberhof. Had his first World Cup victory in 2016 and just missed out making the Olympic team in both 2010 and 2014. Finally got the call in 2018 and came through with Olympic bronze. Good start time of 5.347. That's the fastest start time so far, although it's still quite a bit off of his start record, which he set 9 years ago this week. A 5.319, the start record by Ludwig. Last year he finished 4th in the overall World Cup standings, very consistent. He was top 10 in most of the races, never out of the top 15. 4th place at the World Championships. Johannes Ludwig from Oberhof. Down at the bottom of the track now. His teammate Locke found speed down here. How's the setup for this sled? Not bad, 50.115. That's a 4th place. That's a kind of a common number, as we've been saying. 4th last year in the World Cup, 4th at the World Championships, 4th right now in this race with 4 sleds remaining.
So schaut's aus, bevor die letzten 4 Athleten hier an den Start gehen. Ein Russe, ein Österreicher, ein Deutscher und ein Italiener. Und der Russe macht jetzt den Anfang mit der Startnummer.
There's the exit of curve 9, which Johan does with aplomb. Now 4 remaining. Semen Pavlichenko up next. Pavlichenko has had so many solid results. Aside from his World Championship in 2015, which was a bit of a surprise, to be honest, way back then. One of his first big results ever. He had that world title, but he has backed that up with a World Cup overall 2 years ago. 4-time European champion. Last year, Semen had very good results, very consistent results, including a victory in the last race of the year in Königssee. So he brings a 1-race winning streak into the new season. But I bring up the consistency because Pavlichenko tends to crash once or twice in most seasons in his effort to gain every last advantage. Sometimes he gets out of control. Not so last year. And perhaps consistency has been late in coming for Semen Pavlichenko. 29 years old from Bratsk, Russia. Speed of 78.5, not too bad. And crossing in 7th place, 50.217. The Russians not putting out the solid results just yet. You know, keep in mind that Russia has won the World Cup overall in each of the last 3 seasons, or 3 of the last 4 seasons. And right now they sit in 7th and 8th place. Pavlichenko and Rapilov, those are their best showings at the moment. Okay, Austria continuing to do well. Felix Locke of Germany has the lead, but the Gleirscher brothers, Nico and David, are 3rd and 2nd respectively. But now the final of the Austrians getting ready. No spectators again. Those are all coaches, all athletes, all assistants. And this pandemic-laden season gets underway with the first run winding down. Jonas Müller, 23 years old, from Bludenz, where they have just completed the track, the brand new track, the newest track in the world, which will host the Junior World Championships next season. Jonas Müller on course. Marcus Brock, the team leader, sport director, says that the key to Jonas Müller's success is how relaxed he is on the sled. He drives faster than the sled truck there around the Kreisel. actually approaching Kreisel now. Ooh, with a double bump. That is not good, and that is not relaxed. Really, that's too big a deficiency to make up for, even with his knowledge of this track, even if the setup is perfect. Mueller is going to fall back. As I said earlier, I'm not an expert on the nuances of this sport, but I can pick up a mistake when there's a mistake, and that happened out of the Kreisel, 50.269. It was either right in or right out of the Kreisel. We'll get another look here in a moment. But Jonas Mueller back in 10th place behind his teammate, Wolfi Kindl. Right there, a little double tap into the Kreisel. Unfortunate for Jonas Mueller. This race is being aired live this weekend, some of the World Cup action on ORF, the Austrian National Television Network. ORF covers most of the races, not a lot of them live. The Linger brothers, of course, providing the commentary, the Olympic gold medalists, two-time gold medalists. Now we have two remaining, and the final German is Max Langenhahn, the youngest at 21 years old, from Friedrichsrode, Germany. Also out of the Oberhof region, where Bly's from, where Ludwig is from, and Bowman's from. So 4 out of the 5 of the German national team this year, Thuringians. Only Felix Lach representing Bavaria, if you don't count Rupert Staudinger. Langenhahn broke out last season. It was his first full season on the World Cup, and he was very consistent, staying in the seeded group for most of the year and ending up in 9th in the World Cup overall standings. Quarter of a second back here out of curve 9, the second to last split before the finish. That will probably parlay to more like 10th place, 11th place also. 14th, 50.429. So the Germans are spread around this leaderboard right now in 1st, 4th, 13th, 14th, and 18th. And their showings are absolutely a display of experience, where Lach and Ludwig are in the top 5, and the 3 young Germans are out of the top 10 at the moment. Well, finally here in run number 1, we conclude things with Dominik Fischnaller. And Dominik, 27 years old, from Mirlansen, coming up in a moment. And there's a lot we can say about Fischnaller, including he has plenty of World Cup victories, 6 all told, including at least 1 on this track, but was battling appendicitis at the beginning of this week. In fact, he told me, I have appendicitis, and was very close to getting the appendix taken out, but instead he's treating it with antibiotics. He still has pain when he's sliding during training here. In fact, he only had 1 full day of training. And he told me he's just giving it a shot on Saturday. So we'll see what kind of shot he can give it. He was very good yesterday in the seated training, so he can put the pain aside, apparently. And Dominik in the hunt here at 600s. Can he find the speed down at the bottom? Nice exit. Staying off the wall totally on curve 9. Let's see if that pays off. Speed of 78.3. Could it be a top 5 for Fischnaller? He crosses in 3rd place. The magic of Dominik Fischnaller. He always manages a way to make it happen. I've always sung his praises because versatility. This is a guy that does well on all types of tracks. And, oh, you can almost feel the pain that he has from that appendicitis. How about that? A great display of courage and a great display of sliding for Dominik Fischnaller, who concludes the first run here with the top 3 placing.
bei diesem Weltcup-Auftakt hier in
Great
Innsbruck.
mix of countries in this leaderboard. It's the usual suspects, but they're all represented in the top 7, so that'll be great to see. Leaderboard coming up here in just a moment as Dominic makes his way to the control button. Will it be red? Will it be green? It is green. Good news for the Sioux Tyrolean. Beautiful day here in Innsbruck, Austria. Look at the Kreisel in the background. Germany, Austria, Italy, Austria, Germany, Italy, Latvia, and Russia, the top 8. All of the big nations, with the absence of the USA and Canada, not here. Pavlichenko in 8th place, 1600ths back. Just behind him is his teammate Rapilov. Let's say that the top 10 or top 11 have chances at podiums depending on how the conditions are in run number 2. A look at all of the finishers. We had a couple of crashes, but I believe everyone crossed the finish line, including Valentin Cretu back there in 32nd place. That's the situation in Innsbruck, Austria.